Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Mayor Marianne Mead Ward, and this is another edition of Burlington Matters. And we are continuing our tour of the neighborhoods, where we are talking to community groups and individuals in various parts of our city. And so we have with us today the Ward 5 Councillor Paul Sharman, and we have Susanne Rodgers, who's the Sheldon Creek Community Group leader, to talk about what's happening in Ward 5 and Sheldon Creek in particular. So I'm really excited to have you both here again today. It's a great show, and let's just get right into it. So Susanne, talk to us a little bit about what the Sheldon Creek Community Group is, how long it's been going, and what you have been focused on. Go ahead.
So I'm coming at it from actually a COVID perspective, which is kind of interesting. We have a Facebook group, and that group's been around for about 6 years. And I'm part of that group, but I'm not the admin. I don't manage it. I'm just someone who lives in the neighborhood. And as we all know, last year with COVID, everything got turned upside down and tipsy-turvy. And when we were coming up to Halloween last year during the summer, I started to think about the fact that we were maybe not going to have a normal Halloween, not normal trick-or-treating and so on. And so I started to think, what can we do as a community to maybe change things? And so I decided to reach out through the Facebook group, and thankfully the admins on that group were really accommodating. They didn't mind that I posted quite often. And I asked, was there any interest in doing something kind of fun and different for Halloween to maybe make it safe for COVID, but still fun for the kids? So that's really when it got its start. So it's just about a year now. So it's a relatively new group, and it's pretty informal too. It's not like we have, committee meetings or anything like that. It's just me and some friends in the neighborhood. I've made lots of new friends in the neighborhood, and we just sort of get together. We've kind of got our own little splinter Facebook group now where we can kind of organize things and take it back to our main group. And yeah, we just do fun little activities for the neighborhood to kind of keep us going and make it through COVID relatively unscathed. So yeah, that's what we're all about.
Well, that's really cool that it came out of a need, but it's continuing to exist, and I hope it will continue to exist well beyond this sort of COVID pandemic, which thankfully we're starting to come out of, with vaccines being what they are, and obviously things reopening. So we've heard from some community groups already in the city that the start was through some sort of necessity, whether it was COVID or some other issue that landed in the community's lap and brought people together, and then it just grew from there. So it's a story of a lot of groups, and being able to leverage social media and Facebook is really really helpful. Obviously it's cheap. It's just your time and your effort. Councillor Sharman, coming to you, when did you first find out about the group, and how are you able to be involved and support, and vice versa? How do they support your work?
Well, I think it's me supporting them. The the nice thing about the Facebook groups is it creates a community communication mechanism, and recreating the notion of a village, which has not existed for a long time. Having Sue here is particularly important, because she's a community activator. She was able to work with the Facebook group in order to begin taking a leadership role. And of course, she's done much more than the Halloween event, and she'll talk more about that. And has become, within that group, deeply involved with the other people who actually set up the group in the first place. So we'll talk more about that, but there's been a lot going on, and it's pretty exciting. The group in itself, like the others, all sort of went through their early formation stages, getting to get a sense of what positive ways the Facebook groups could be used in. For example, traffic management, traffic concerns, and we'll mention that a little later as well. But right from the get-go, they would always comment about things, and from my point of view, it became clear that just by being party to those groups and answering questions and commenting back, so as things became clear that they wanted something, or there was something going on that required some attention, by being there, we've created relationships that I think are valid, are respected, and you know, they're trusting as well. And I think that's really the value. There are just so many ways it's worked, and so many examples. You know, it's become something real. And Sue is actually the example of how valuable the Facebook groups can be.
Well, you know, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about as we've been having these community conversations, and particularly some of the situations you've been through, Paul, in your ward, first with the flood, and I know a community group came out of that particular emergency and crisis, and now through COVID. And, you know, one of the things we talk about, we folks who are in charge of the city and talk to our emergency management personnel, is how we build resilience and community capacity. And we use all these fancy words to basically describe exactly what you're doing. You know, how do we make sure that a community can know about the needs in the community and support each other and help each other? And that's how you get through, that's emergency 101. That is how you get through a major crisis like a flood, like a pandemic. It's more than just the leadership at the city. It's more than just the emergency personnel, all very important pieces of the puzzle, but the success of any efforts really depends on the community capacity and the connections that you're making. So
just to interrupt that, just remember,
yeah, sure.
You know, you go back a few centuries, it was a bell tower ringing, right? Or in the war, the Second World War, it was a siren, right? So now, you know, our communities are larger and they're more complex, but we now have something that allows people to communicate with each other, which is really cool.
Well, and that what we were talking about just a minute ago is that those relationships last beyond the immediate emergency, beyond the immediate situation or the issue that brought people together in the first place. It continues. So coming back to you, Sue, tell us about what you've got planned either over the summer or coming into the fall. That is work that you're continuing to do with your fellow neighbors.
Well, just to backtrack a little bit, when I first started thinking about the Halloween idea, my thought was so simple and so straightforward. I was like, let's have a house decorating contest, and let me ask Paul. Reach out to Paul, because he's right. He's our go-to. Anytime there's any kind of question on the Facebook group, he gets tagged a million times. And so I sent him a message and I said, do you think that you or the city would donate like a $50 gift card? That's all I asked for. And he said, I can do you one better than that. I can direct you to the Community Support Fund and you can apply for funding for this. And so that was really eye-opening because I had no idea about that. And so that's been a great thing. And now that it's a different year, I'm eligible to apply again. So that's actually what I'm in the midst of doing right now. My application is I think, under review. And we are hopeful. I mean, it's hard with COVID, but with the move to stage 3 and having 100 people outside, that has made things a little bit easier for us. But our hope and our plan is to have a park opening, because Desjardins Park, which is right in Sheldon Creek, got a facelift. It has a brand new splash pad and an awesome playground. And we wanted to have a way to kind of bring the community together and to celebrate. And so we're trying to have just a small little community gathering of sorts. And that's what we're trying to plan for now. But the neighbors have already said, no, you have to do Halloween again and you have to do Christmas again because it was so good. So so there's lots to look forward to, and hopefully we can make some of it happen again this year because it was a lot of fun.
Well, I remember
Christmas. So
sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say she hadn't mentioned Christmas yet. What happened?
Well, we'll come back. We'll come back and talk about Christmas.
Exactly.
But what I think is really great is I was going to ask you if you've availed yourself of our community funds. So that's a great segue to, and maybe I'll ask Paul to talk a little bit about the fund. He knows it very well as well. For folks that are watching, that there is money on the table from the city for community-led initiatives. And this has been a transformation that the city's been on for some time, where we've decided to get out of the business of hosting events ourselves. In kind of a top-down approach, and instead put serious money on the table. And I think our fund is 150,000, something in that neighborhood. It's a lot of money spread across the city for people to access, and with a good idea to come forward and say, we want to do this and get the funding. So I remember seeing on your Facebook page, your Halloween initiative, which was awesome, and Christmas, which was awesome. So maybe Paul, talk to us and the folks that may be watching that may want to themselves do a community event about what is available to people in the fund.
Well, thank you for that. There are two aspects. The first one was Love My Hood, and that was about $350 that we were providing out of the community fund. And then along came the idea of having volunteer or matching funds where people have been doing volunteering or putting effort into building things. And so we have got all sorts of examples of the Love My Hood going across the ward, whether it be street parties, barbecues, which we have a bunch of those going on. One on the street every Saturday now. That occasionally, I think once a year, it does a street party with funding. That's been on TV. That's pretty special. We have. We then get into the up to 5,000 funding. We've got something going on up in the orchard, which is our orchard garden, where a group of mums got together and with some help from other people built a couple of raised gardens for growing vegetables and getting the local school kids involved. And man, these boxes are painted and they've got all sorts of veggies growing in them. And so this became so exciting that the group said, well, how about we build 8 of these boxes and put them around the entrance into a parkette. And so that went through the community fund application process that Sue mentioned, and they were given approval, including approval to put these in our parkette. And so this parkette on Quinty at the north end has this sort of semicircular entrance into the parkette, and the path going out of it towards up into the wood. And so they're putting these boxes around the semicircular entrance, and it'll be all full of veggies. So these boxes were built 3 weeks ago. I was up there. I spent 3 hours helping them create these boxes. And it's just amazing what we can do with a little bit of money to inspire people to have a go and do something. And no, it's pretty fabulous. It dates back. I'm trying to remember the name of the person from Vancouver, I think it was.
Jim Dyers.
Jim Dyers?
Jim Dyers came and spoke to us
Right.
about building neighborhood capacity. It's a fancy way of saying making sure that neighborhoods know each other and support each other. And so that was very transformational when Jim came and spoke. And I know our Parks and Recreation staff, which are the ones running the community fund, we're quite inspired to really turn loose a bunch of money into the community to see what the community does with it. Yep. And as Paul was saying, the $5,000 is matched by either sweat equity, so volunteer time and labor, or donations that in-kind goods or actual cash that a community can raise. So the total value of that ends up being closer to $10,000. I mean, think about what you can do in a neighborhood for 10 grand, right? So I hope folks watching out there are going to get some ideas and apply. The money's there and it doesn't go anywhere until you access it. So let's get that out into the community. Coming back to you, Sue, talk to us about what you've got planned for Christmas.
For Christmas?
It seems like a long way off, but I know it'll be here before we know it. So you did something at Christmas last year, and or anything else you've got planned for the fall. So we've talked about Halloween, but anything else, or even the summer.
I think Christmas, it kind of got something started that it was supposed to be, oh, let's just get through COVID. And now it was such a success that I think it's going to be an annual thing that we don't really have a choice, which is great. I mean, it's really nice to that people were so excited about it and really enjoyed it. So last year after Halloween, we did some contests at Halloween and we brought it together. We had a car parade, which was really fun. And Paul actually participated And we got some neighbors. There was about 15 cars or so that decorated our cars in a Halloween type of theme, and drove through the entire, we got every single street just about, and we had people standing on their porches cheering for us. It was really exciting. And then when Halloween was over, everybody was like, well, what are you doing for Christmas? I was like, oh, okay. I guess we'll do something. And Christmas got even more exciting. So we had, what did we do? We had, my dad is a pretty talented builder, and he built a mailbox, a Santa mailbox. So it's a bright red mailbox, and it sits in McCoy Common. And the kids all came and they addressed their letters to Santa. And then we had some elves volunteer to write back to each and every letter by hand and deliver them to the kids' porches. So it's just like Paul talked about it being a village, and it really does let our little small community become a village. It was really exciting. We did another car parade, Christmas themed. And then we had our very own elf on the shelf, who we called Sheldon. And rather than being on a shelf, he kind of made his way around the neighborhood in front gardens or in windows if there was a snowstorm. And so the kids each day had to get outside, go for a walk, and see if they could find where Sheldon was hiding each day. So this is really exciting. We did a lot of good stuff. We've done some really nice things as well with tying it into food drives. I mentioned my dad, and he is a volunteer at the Burlington Food Bank, and I keep making him do videos for our communities, encouraging people to donate. So we try to work in some community, just some goodwill as well, and try to raise food for needy people as well wherever we can, which is really good. We just tried to do lots of that kind of good stuff. So I think now the kids expect Sheldon to return and they expect the mailbox to be back so they can mail their letters again. So certainly some things we're going to definitely keep going, hopefully this year. It seemed to get some really good feedback, and it really just brought some nice spirit. And a lot of people, even if they don't necessarily celebrate Christmas from a Christian standpoint, they were still really excited to get into the holiday spirit of things, and they really enjoyed it. And we got a lot of really great feedback from it. So yeah, we'll try to keep that going if we can.
That's awesome. And you've learned that when you're good at what you do, you have to keep doing it. So what great ideas. I mean, these are just awesome. I'm thinking about what I could do in my own neighborhood, and my kids are a little older, but what an incredibly creative way to continue to bring the community together and mark those occasions that we all celebrate in different ways, but the essence of them is coming together as community, and that allows you to meet people, right? You touched on that earlier, Sue, that how important that is, especially when we're in such an online world now. And it's easy to either shield your identity, or you don't know necessarily you might know who your Facebook friends are, but you might not know who lives, down the block from you. And this allows you to meet each other in a safe way, even through COVID, and to start to work on some of those things. And love that a component of this is giving back to places like the Burlington Food Bank and the garden that Paul was talking about, the vegetables. I mean, that is what defines a strong community and a connected community, and to see that emerge organically, kudos to you and your other folks that help. So if somebody's watching this and wants to, duplicate this in their own neighborhood, what advice would you give to them? And how many of there are you that have to come together to plan some of these things? And how would somebody get something going like this in their neighborhood?
Just do it. Honestly, it's scary. You talk about connecting with neighbors, and I'm actually very quiet, very shy. I'm not the person to randomly go up to people on my street and just be like, hi, I'm Sue, nice to meet you. It's not me. And so this was a really great way to force me out of my comfort zone and meet new people, which was great. And I've told Paul this story, but I remember when I was first thinking about putting that idea out there, and I used the Facebook group, and I had written my post. I was at the park with my daughter, pushing her on the swing, and I had my finger hovering over the send button. Do I do this? Do I ask the community what they think? Because it's scary. You always think, well, someone's going to think it's a stupid idea, or they're going to have something to say and put it down. So I actually stood there for a good 30 seconds and I was like, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And I was like, whatever, let's just send it out, see what happens. And I'm so happy that I did, because it really kind of made it a huge difference in my own personal life. And I know in the neighborhood as well, so many people have been really grateful to what we've brought to it. So I think the other thing to say is that you don't have to be someone who has endless hours in the day. You know, you don't have to be someone who's like, okay, I don't have a job, I don't have kids, so I can devote my time to this. I'm a mom, I have a full-time job. And where there's a will, there's a way, right? And you start small and you see how it organically evolves, and you just be willing to run with it. And yeah, that's it. It's easy.
That is so inspiring, and I would never have known that you would describe yourself as shy, because you're very articulate, and you know, good for you being a connector. And sometimes maybe it is a little easier for people to start it online, right? You have a bit of protection and distance. It's not the same as walking up to a random person on the street. I know how that could be intimidating. So it's really neat that the technology has also allowed you to step into a space which is really one where you're good at coming up with ideas and organizing people and just getting her done, which is awesome. So, you know, kudos to you. Paul, what kind of supports could a community group expect to get from their council members? So certainly, you know where the money is at the city. That's helpful. But what kinds of things has your office provided for any other groups that might be in Ward 5 that would want to get started?
Let me just tell you a story about Sue, and you'll see where this is going. So shortly after Sue had organized the Christmas parade, the Halloween parade, and the items we've already talked about, a few of her neighbors started sending me emails saying, so how do you give recognition to Sue as a community member for the leadership she's shown and the work that she's done? And I thought about that for a bit, and I thought, well, okay, so what is the objective here? It's really to talk to other members of the community about what somebody's done and how that's inspired others to participate. And so what we did was we, as a result of that, specifically, Sue, this is exactly about you, was we launched this Good News, Good People recognition program. And what that's allowed us to do is to give the community members the opportunity to nominate somebody they want to have be given recognition. It's not a big deal. It's nothing fancy. It's just very simply, I believe we should give recognition. And so far, last time we met, we had Heather DeHaan on with us, and she's been recognized. And so you know, when that happens, we write a story, or the people write a story about the person they're nominating. We get a photograph. We put it on the council website, the news website, on the city website, and then we give the folks who are being recognized a certificate and a letter. And needless to say, it gets posted on Facebook and gets lots and lots of likes. And then in this case, there's a video coming in with a special interview with the mayor. How good does that get? What do you think? See, you like that?
That, you know what, it is so inspiring, and I love that you've started that, Paul, and what a deserving recipient. It's so inspiring for me to read what everyday residents are doing throughout our city in little pockets, just quietly being you and seeing a need in your community and finding a way to fill that need, and then attracting others. It's like this gravitational pull, attracting others to you. And so I've just made a note to myself that there are recognition programs that are either existing or starting in other wards in the city too, and it would be great to sort of promote, if you're in Ward 1, here's who you call, in Ward 2, and all of the wards, recognizing the citizens that we have, the residents that we have that are doing cool things. I love reading it. So I'm, when Paul puts that out, that's usually where I see it, is in his newsletter or on the Facebook page. I just love reading those stories about what people are doing. And then that draws the attention of the other neighbors who may not have heard about you to the work that you're doing. And again, it just continues that gravitational pull. So, I really like what you said, Sue, for people who might be watching around, just start. Just, because if you overthink it, probably, my guess would be, well, how could I run this, and who's going to fund it? And, is anyone going to help me? And do I really have time? Like, you can, I'm sure all of that went through your mind as you were hovering over your phone for that 30 seconds. But you did it, and the community's there. So that's really neat. That's really neat that the community stepped up. And I expect that people sort of come and go sometimes a little bit. They'll be there for something when they've got the time, and then other people step in at other times. Is that fair to say, Sue?
Yeah, for sure. But I've also seen others kind of branch off and do their own thing, which is really nice too, right? We had somebody in our neighborhood who decided to do a community rink in the winter. And I know nothing about that, so I was no help. But it was, I have no idea if what I did inspired her to do that. But it's like you say, it's contagious. And sometimes in these Facebook groups, we all know that we can get some threads going that are negative, and not always pleasant. And I feel that if you can stay positive, and I always try to stay positive, doesn't always work, but I try my best to always put positivity out there, because it comes back to you. And I really do feel that, we made a joke at one point that, COVID has nothing on our neighborhood, because the contagion of the kindness and the spirit that came through our neighborhood like outweighed any kind of spread of COVID anytime. So I do really feel that that's important, that other people kind of are inspired and try to do their thing as well. I'm certainly not perfect. I don't know everything, but like I said before, just putting yourself out there, giving it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you never know until you try. So yeah.
That's awesome. And we are unfortunately out of time. I told you it would go by really, really fast. So if people want to find you, you're on Facebook. The Sheldon Creek Community Group is what they would look for, Sue. Mm-hmm. Councillor Sharman, you are at Ward 5 at burlington.ca if they want to reach out to you. And thank you both for your time today. This has been really inspiring. I hope the folks watching think about things that they can do in their own communities to recognize and celebrate and come together. And I love what you said, that this is contagious in a good way. For another edition of Burlington Matters, wrapping up, I'm Marianne Mead Ward, Mayor of Burlington, and thank you for watching.